Wars. Coming up in this episode we have... That's an Argentine Ford Falcon. Modern and old-fashioned at the same time. And they have a history that's both fascinating and sinister. And then finally, when I got close enough, they were horses. I wonder if they're wild. Nah, maybe if it was raining I'd take shelter in there, but nah, I'm going to keep going. So I'm in the Argentine town of Esquel in northern Patagonia, where I'd just seen the old Patagonian Express. Walking around in the afternoon, I saw an art exhibition was being held, so I went in and had a look. And what's this? Rather strange-looking soldier there. Union Jack? It's something to do with the Falklands War, because it's recently been the anniversary. This exhibit throws scorn on Los Ingleses, the British, and their concept of sovereign umbrella, and sarcastically lists among the strategic advantages that allows the British to pillage our fisheries and petroleum, and to advance the interests of OTAN, which is NATO in Spanish. This was a little less controversial. It tells the story of a time capsule they unearthed when they moved a statue of José San Martin, an independence hero. That appears to be something signed by all the local dignitaries back in 1931. The art exhibition was on the second floor of a building, and when I looked out the window, I saw this car. It's an Argentine Ford Falcon. Argentina got Ford Falcons around the same time Australia did, in the early 1960s. But something doesn't add up. The body shape looks 1960s, but the front and the grille looks 1980s. In fact, it looks a bit like an Australian XD Falcon, which in Australia was made between 79 and 82, I think. I know, because I used to own one. In fact, I learned to drive in a Ford Falcon, just like this one, a 1978 model that my dad had. But this is what a brand new Ford Falcon looked like in 78. They kept the old 1960s body shape right up until 1991 when the last one rolled off the production line. In fact, manufacturing nearly 500,000 of these Ford Falcons with that old-fashioned bodywork over a 30-year period. And while you might laugh at Ford Argentina for doing that, they are still in business, investing millions up until the present day, while the Australian branch of Ford closed forever back in 2016, unable to make a profit. There is another connection between Ford Argentina and Ford Australia in the form of this man, Lebanese-born but Australian-raised Jacques Nasser. He worked his way up through the ranks of Ford Australia and eventually was appointed the head of Ford Argentina. He would later become the CEO of the entire Ford Motor Company, but when he was in Argentina, something out of the ordinary happened. According to a passage in this book about world business leaders, he was kidnapped for a few days, not by the military dictatorship or their Argentine opponents, but by the Peruvian guerrilla group, the Shining Path. He was only taken hostage for a few days and he was released unharmed. There's a bitter irony in that anecdote because prior to him coming to Argentina, the ubiquitous Argentine Ford Falcon was so common it was the vehicle of choice by the military junta and the death squads when they wanted to kidnap, torture and disappear people regarded as enemies of the state or subversives. Often they were innocent people, and many of them were women, as I said in the previous episode. Of course, the Argentine military denied it until they no longer could, because one day they found some of these vehicles abandoned, dusty, in a hangar in the very same military airstrip where planes would take off with these prisoners and throw their bodies out into the ocean. But there is a further twist. Jacques Nasser, after he left Ford, he went on to head BHP, a huge international mining company, and he currently sits on the board of Fox Corporation. Not so some of his Argentine Ford Motor Company predecessors. In 2018, they were sentenced to 10 and 12 years in jail, some 4 decades after these crimes against humanity, and although one of them was 98 years old, justice had finally been served. The next day, the antibiotics had done their job and my inflamed gum was much better. So I decided to say goodbye. Now, I want to say a word or two about Armando and Anuska, my hosts. What lovely people they were. You can see here on the window a sticker that says, Zona de Amigos, Friend Zone. That was kind of nice. And here is Anuska out the front of her shop, which is joined to the house. And it says, Somos todos hermanos, which means we are all brothers. And she was born in Holland. You see the little Dutch lady cutouts on the street that she's standing next to. And when I told her that my mother was Dutch, she loved me and she was a lovely host. Everything in her shop was handmade by her. Keeps her busy. I would like to have stayed longer, but it was the middle of April and I had to get down to Patagonia before the snow and ice, which is probably already there, became too much to contend with. Anyhow, I hit the road and I was soon heading south on Ruta 40, Route 40. I found the towns were getting further and further apart and I had to really keep an eye on the gasoline. There's no fuel gauge on my bike. Coming into this town, Gobernador Costa, down the central road of the town they had all these horse and cart monuments. That says Sede Social Club Atlético Gobernador Costa. So Sede means like headquarters or centre of a local soccer club, I'd guess. There's another wagon. This is interesting. Look at that old car there and the old truck in the background. This is what you see when you leave town, and they had a virtually identical one welcoming you to the town. It's a feature you see all through South America, these welcoming arches and farewelling arches as you enter and leave a town. It's so flat, it's kind of like a semi-desert. We must be in a rain shadow area. There's no trees, and look how flat it's become. Look at this, it looks like saltbush or spinifex. There is a fence there. Then I saw some specks. Originally I thought they were trees, but when I got closer I could see that they were animals, but I wasn't sure what sort of animal. And then finally when I got close enough, they were horses. I wonder if they're wild. He certainly looks wild and free to me. There's another group over there. I wonder if he's a stallion protecting his mares. Oop, he's off. Down here you don't go past a gas station without filling up because you don't know if the next place will even have gasoline, even if it has a gas station that's open. But there's no way I'm going to go in there, even to camp. Look at it, totally abandoned. Kind of scary looking with all those smashed windows. Nah, maybe if it was raining I'd take shelter in there, but nah, I'm going to keep going. This car wreck belongs with that wrecked gas station. Another Gauchito Gil shrine. This one's at a roundabout. Even though it's late afternoon, it's getting cold. It's only a bit over 11 degrees Celsius, and the wind is getting stronger. According to my calculations, I needed to top up with gasoline here, but the wind made it hard to park the bike and even harder to pour the gasoline without it getting blown all over the tank, which is exactly what happened. Here, if you don't want to drive at night, you might have to cut short your day's riding because towns are so far apart. The next big town on my map was a place called Rio Mayo, so that seemed a logical place to stay. Then I came to this monument here. It says, "Welcome to Rio Mayo, the national capital of shearing." And that, I guess, is supposed to be a shearer shearing a sheep. Pulling up here was a bad move on my part because a strong side wind was making it impossible for me to get off the bike. It was so strong, in fact, I couldn't even ride the bike upright enough to ride off. After struggling for about 5 or 6 minutes, I realised I had no alternative but to drop the bike. Even then I couldn't get it back up, so I hastily started ripping off all the luggage, gasoline leaking everywhere. Just as I got it righted up, a group of local bikers arrived to give me a hand. Now you'll notice here that they have modified their side stance so their bikes lean over a lot more, so the wind can't lift it up as easily. The friendly boys told me there was a gas station in town. Just after the monument, the road wound down into a river valley, which afforded the town some protection from the wind. I filled up with gas, and they suggested I go to this hotel called the Hotel San Martin. I knocked very loudly, called out a few times, nobody came to the door. I don't know if it's siesta time, it was late in the afternoon, but there was nobody home. I walked around a little bit, and in the same street was this Che Guevara mural. As you know, Che Guevara was born and raised in Argentina, but in the north, not down here in the south. So I rode around a bit, did a U-turn, saw a sign that said Hotel Acata. I don't know what it means, but it's something in Mapuche, and they welcomed me in. It was nice and warm inside, but I appeared to be the only person staying in the hotel, and I was all alone in the restaurant, but it was nice to tuck into this. A big piece of chicken and salad. What a way to end the day after a 415-kilometre ride in the windiest conditions I've yet to experience. And it's only going to get worse. The wind's going to get a lot stronger and the temperatures are going to get a lot colder. That's all for this episode, amigos. But coming up in the next episode, we have... What the hell is that? Looks like we're in EPF country, the Argentine oil fields. Man, it was windy. So windy.